Okay, so by 76, it seemed like you guys slowed down a little bit. Seemed like you guys were kind of trying to find your direction a little bit.
Right.
And by 79, I guess Dick Griffey, who was, the founder of Solar Records, he had suggested that you guys get a lead vocalist.
Yes.
Was there a reason why up to this point you guys never had like an official singer in the group?
Well, we were out on tour with the Jackson 5 at the time. And Dick Griffey came to us and said, listen, you guys are doing good on the tour. But he said, I think you guys need to get a lead singer. And we thought about it because our horns was our singers, in a sense. But we said, wait a minute, okay. Like the Commodores had Lionel Richie, Earth, Wind & Fire, Maurice White, Philip Bailey. So a lot of these groups had singers. So at that time, disco was like dying a little bit. They were like burning records in Chicago and disco stinks and all that other kind of stuff. So we decided to get a lead singer. Now, I was hanging out in New York, my wife and I, at Studio 54 in Regine's, and I realized that every weekend there was a ladies' night. So when I went back to the studio, when JT were in there working on the album, the Ladies' Night album, I said, well, there's a song called, no, he said, everybody, they have ladies' nights on the weekend. So George Brown, who wrote most of the track, and my brother said, yeah, wow. You have one of those anywhere and everywhere in the world. And that was our first single. Frankie Crocker in New York broke the record, and the rest is history with that. And of course, we went on and on with song after song after song, with lead singer.
Right, yeah. So James J.T. Taylor ends up joining the group. Did you guys actually want Stevie Wonder as the lead singer at that time?
Stevie was a friend, but no, actually what happened was we were working in the House of Music over in West Orange, New Jersey, and the owners knew J.T., and he had a band called the Fillet of Soul, and he was introduced to us. So my brother said, listen, I'm going to play some progressions. I want you to sing to it. So he played a little jazz, he played a little funk, and JT sang through that. And then my brother said, you sound like a young Nat King Cole or somebody, which came out a little later, like songs like Too Hot and Cherish and everything like that. But that's how it happened. We didn't audition anyone else, actually. It started with JT.
Right. So JT shows up on the Ladies' Night album and the Ladies' Night single. The album goes platinum. The single goes to number 8. Huge song. Ends up getting remade by Lil' Kim and Missy Elliott later on.
Yeah.
Aaliyah ended up sampling it. And was this like your biggest hit up to this point?
Yeah. But what happened was we were out in L.A. We had won 2 American Music Awards. And the vamp of Ladies' Night, this is your night, come on, let's all celebrate. So my brother said, that's another song. So we went back to Jersey. He's in the studio, fooling around with a track. So he plays this track for us. And it had that kind of like down-home vibe to it, like grandma or grandpa down there somewhere in Birmingham, Alabama, sipping on some Kool-Aid or something. And then we had the little part there with the Yahoo. And it was one of those kind of records that we didn't know that record was going to become one of our biggest record celebrations. And that's what it is today.
Right. I want to get to that in a second because on that same album, Ladies' Night, the single Too Hot was on there also. Too Hot, which went number 8 on Billboard. Coolio ended up remaking it later on.
He sure did, yeah.
A hell of a song. A hell of a song. Well, touring with the Jackson 5 before Michael Jackson, ended up doing Thriller and becoming a megastar.
Oh, yeah, when he went solo, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when he was a kid touring with the Jackson 5, did you realize how big of a talent he was?
Yeah, well, definitely we knew something was there, because he was leading most of the songs. And he had a unique voice. And I guess, Barry Gordy and the producers around him realized that also. Yeah, but he became such a huge artist. He went solo, too. Just like Lionel Richie went solo, Yeah. J.T. Taylor went solo. They come and then they go, so they get too solo. That's a joke.
Any interesting stories with the Jackson 5 or Michael Jackson?
No, I mean, they just had, high energy show. A lot of fans, supported them, so which was good for us, and they accepted what we were doing, so that was good.
Okay, and that next year, 1980, you've already touched on this, was the Celebrate album that had the song Celebration on there. That song went number 1 on Billboard. Not the R&B chart, not the whatever chart, contemporary chart. Number 1 on the main Billboard 200. Celebration by Kool the Gang.
Right.
You've been at this point for over a decade or decade and a half. How did it feel by this time to have the number 1 album in the country? The number 1 song in the country?
We felt very good about that because, Jungle Boogie, Hollywood Swing all made it within, the top 5, but not quite number 1. Mm-hmm. And that was a great feeling. Now, we had a lot of number 1 R&B records. A lot of our songs were number 1 R&B, but to go pop, that was like the top of the charts, And not only that, it was Cashbox, Record World. That's when you had all 3 magazines back during that time.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is such a timeless song. I was listening to that song just over and over again this morning. It's like everyone could relate to that forever. Yeah. Like 100 years from now, people will be playing this at parties and so forth.
Yeah. But that was indeed a blessing, because you had a lot of different songs called Celebration or Celebrate. I think it was Three Dog Night, Celebrate. That's Madonna. And you go on and on. There was a lot of Celebrate records. For us to slip through there at the time, coming off of Ladies' Night and capturing that song that everybody fell in love with.
I mean, yeah. That year, they played that song at the 1980 World Series.
Yes.
At the Super Bowl, the NBA Finals. And I guess in 81, when they brought the Iran hostages back home, they would play that song in the background.
That was another time, yeah.
Yeah, it was like a theme song to like the whole world at that point.
Well, a little later, they even played the song up in the space station. Did you know about that one?
No, I didn't know about that.
The astronauts got up and they floating around with celebration. Yeah. So I mean that stands by itself. We can I'm not saying we can't, but what I'm saying, we tried other little songs to see if we can capture that vibe again. And no, Celebration stands by itself.
I mean, that song today, I looked, has 300 million streams on Spotify. 300 million on Spotify. That's just Spotify. I'm not even looking at Apple Music, YouTube, all the other streaming platforms. 300 million people have listened to that decades and decades after it came out.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that we didn't know. I mean, I didn't know how much sampling was going on, how many hits we were getting, with Celebration. I mean, I'm a Spotify fan today. I sit there and listen to Spotify. I hear songs I ain't heard in years myself, like Bad Woman or, I remember John Coltrane. It goes on and on. I said, I did that? We did this? We did that? We did the Delphonic, Try to Make a Fool Out of You. We played the Temptations, Motown, Since I Lost My Baby. And then we had a song called Sea of Tranquility. And D'Angelo sampled that and got a big record off of that. Give It Back to You.
Yep.
So like I said, Brad, it's been a blessing, man. We didn't know it was going to come that way. But here we are.
Oh, yeah. Now, Celebration, your biggest song ever. And honestly, just I just think it kind of personifies feel-good music. Like you cannot help but to smile and feel good and think about, the good times in your life when listening to Celebration.
That's true.
Yeah.
And they look at, well, that's a very sort of uncomplicated record in terms of how, we played it. Some of your purists say, oh, well, what's that all about? A little simple song, celebrate, good times, come on. Huh. You see where it's at today, Still there.
Yeah. Did the record label feel it was a hit when they first heard it, or not really?
Well, at the time, that was like during almost the end of Delight Records. But the young Gabe Vigorito, he felt it was a hit because he put a guitar part on there that sounded a little bit like the Jackson 5. Dun, 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 dun. My brother said, that sounds like a Jackson 5. What are you doing to my record? Little did he know that and all the rest of the song coming together, that this is going to be an all-time big record for us.
Well, I read a passage about that song. I'm not sure if you said it or one of the other group members, but it said the initial idea came from the Quran. I was reading the passage where God was creating Adam and the angels were celebrating and singing praises. That inspired me to write the basic chords, the line, everybody around the world, come on, celebration.
Yeah, it was my brother. Right. Yeah, that was my brother who we lost a couple of years ago, my brother Ronald Bell. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it actually has a, a religious kind of, story behind it, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that and all the other things that we just mentioned, from the Super Bowls, return of the hostages and et cetera. Also, now, my brother wrote another song before he passed. And it was from when Biden was running for president. They played Celebration. When he won, they played Celebration.
Nice.
But one of his speeches, he said, he talked about the pursuit of happiness and the perfect union. Now, if you go back to my album before the one we have out now, we have a song called Pursuit of Happiness, and the name of the album is Perfect Union.
There you have it. Okay, so then that next year, 81, you come out with the Something Special album. And Get Down on It is the big song on there.
Right.
Jermaine Dupri and Snoop Dogg ended up redoing that song later on.
Yes, they sure did, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel like Get Down on It was a hit when you guys first made it?
It was something special about it. My brother, again, he was the key writer on that. And he was telling us he was influenced by Bob Marley. Because a friend of his had said, you ever listen to Bob Marley? And my brother said, no. He said, you should check Bob Marley out. And he was kind of influenced by, that's not a reggae record, but the feel of it, when he came up from listening to Bob Marley, that's how he tells the story when he wrote it.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
All right. And then in 83, you guys had the In the Heart album. And that had Joanna on there.
Yeah.
Was Joanna like a real person?
Not really. What happened was a trumpet player, a guitar player, wanted to write a song about his mother, and he called it Dear Ma. So we're in the studio trying to fit it into the hook. Dear Ma was not working. So someone said, well, why don't we try a woman's name, a lady's name? He said, what? Let's try Joanna. So JT went back in, and he started singing, Joanna, I love you. That worked. And then that record surprised us. I think at that year, it was one of the most played records in the country was Joanna. people say, "Oh man, they done really did it now." They went all the way over into the pop world of Joanna. Big record though, man. You never know what's gonna be a hit.
Yeah. And then that next year in '84, the Emergency album came out, which ended up going double platinum. Your biggest album to date. That had the singles Fresh,
right,
and Cherish.
And Cherish, yeah.
Were you guys surprised that Emergency did as big as it did?
Well, we were building the momentum for that in the heart, something special, celebration, ladies' night. But with that particular record, if I'm not mistaken, we also had Tonight was out on that or the In the Heart album. But what we had on there was Misled. Now, Misled kind of had a whole different vibe. I think we captured more of a AOR sort of rock audience with the song Misled as well.
Well, by '87, JT ended up leaving the group
to
pursue a solo career.
Yes.
And I guess you guys were surprised. There was a quote from you said, we were like, "You're leaving for what?" Just doesn't make sense. JT said, "I've got a better deal. I got some problems with management." There are all kinds of reasons. And you guys said you didn't even see it coming.
Yeah, I mean, well, I personally didn't have nothing against him wanting to do something different. But I said to him, "Why don't you keep it in the group? You know, you got guys to do a project, but they don't leave the group, you know. Like with the Genesis and some of the other guys went out tried their own project, and they did well for them, but they stayed together. But, you know, he was having some problems with management at the time, too, so he decided just to see if he can make it on his own.
Right. And he ended up coming back in '96 for the State of Affairs album.
Right.
But I feel like once he left the group, you guys kind of lost some of your momentum because he was, you know, I mean, he was the voice of the group.
Well, we did a lot of extended touring after that. You know, at the time when we had those hits, we would play like England, Germany, Amsterdam, pretty much France. But after that, we started going into Yugoslavia, Bratislava, Potsdam, behind Iron Curtains, East Berlin, stretched on down to South America. We just continued to grow as a group on through, you know, Tokyo, Bangkok, Japan, you know, all through Africa. So we just continued to go and grow.